This episode of the Busted Wide Open podcast is brought to you by Blueberry. Blueberry offers the best media hosting, accurate listening stats, and their all-new PowerPress Deluxe sites. A no-setup WordPress website for your podcast with all the necessary links to share your show with the world built right in. If you currently produce a podcast and are looking for a better host, or if you're looking to start a new one from scratch, head over to orbitaljigsaw.com/BWO and sign up for the best media hosting and a PowerPress Deluxe site to get your first month absolutely free. That's orbitaljigsaw.com/BWO, or just use the promo code BWO at checkout for your first month absolutely free. And now, enjoy the show.
Hey guys, this is Angel Garza, superstar from WWE, and you are listening to the Busted Wide Open podcast, to the most fresh news of the wrestling. So keep listening and just remember one thing: el Latino está en la casa, baby.
You're listening to the Busted Wide Open podcast, dropping the elbow on the hottest topics in sports entertainment and the world of professional wrestling. With your hosts, Nick Howell and Sir Ian Dangerous. Coming to you from the Orbital Jigsaw Network Arena in sunny Southern California. Welcome back to the Busted Wide Open podcast, our Patron Mailbag series, episode number 26. In my Miller Lite t-shirt with a Miller Lite in hand, my name is Nick Howell.
And I am Sir Ian Dangerous, trying to wrap my head around the fact that today is day one of 2 days of WrestleMania. And there's not going to be a single person in the crowd. Not a single person in the crowd, Nick.
Yeah.
What in the world is happening?
Why are we having the first ever two-night WrestleMania with no crowd to appreciate or cheer it? Here's the fun irony of that, though. I think we might be on the verge of the most watched WrestleMania of all time because of the situation that we're currently facing, because everybody's at home. I think we might be seeing some crazy record numbers of viewership and pay-per-view buys tonight. Gut hunch. Call it that, if you will.
I'm curious to see the numbers as well, since we're all stuck here at home.
Yeah.
Or most of us are. Some of us are working 12-hour days. I'm looking at some of our listeners who are out there busting their butts, and thank you guys for keeping the wheels rolling.
Yes.
We appreciate that. Those of us who are being forced to stay at home. But that being said, that is no excuse to be lazy, Nick. You and I are still working hard. We actually have a whole weekend worth of stuff planned for these crazy times, and I'm looking forward to buckling down on that. It's going to be a nuts day today. We got to do this show, immediately lock in our bets, get those over to Going in Raw, and then we got to start watching the show, do our Discord chat for the entire time, and then afterwards, you and I are going to do a recap show immediately after WrestleMania.
Yes, right here on YouTube, guys. We're going to be right back here on the YouTube, the tubes of you, to do just like we did last night. There's so much going on this weekend. We didn't want to miss any of it. We didn't want to wait till Tuesday to break it all down for you. We're going to do it immediately after both tonight and tomorrow night, both episodes of WrestleMania. So bonus content, guys, heads up. Make sure you're ready for some more wrestling stuff immediately after each night of WrestleMania this weekend. And then I guess we'll have to figure out what we talk about on Tuesday, but I have a feeling that won't be a problem for us. But yeah, today we're here to do our Patron Mailbag, which we do every Saturday, and it is brought to you by our wonderful patrons who send in their questions every single week. If you'd like to get your questions in, you can head over to patreon.com/BWO. All you got to be in is just that $5 tier or higher. If you want to get some bonus episodes, some sweet swag, Skype calls with Nick and Sir Ian Dangerous, every single month, you can get all that too, but to send your questions in, every single week, 4 times a month, just $5 a month. $5 to get your questions in every single week. You definitely
thank you to everyone who thank you to everyone who already is our patron, by the way. You guys are awesome. You're the reason we are able to do this show. You are the grease in our wheels. You are the wind beneath our wings. Thank you very much for that. And if you're not a patron yet, Nick, tell them how they join up.
Yes, patreon.com/BWO is the way to do it. But for everything else that we're doing this weekend, there's 2 places you want to be. 1, Facebook. Come over and search for Busted Wide Open on Facebook. Like our page and send us a join request. We're going to be doing some watch party activities on our page, and we're going to be doing some postings and live chats and things like that. in the Busted Wide Open discussion group, as well as you'll find links in there to our Discord community in various places, as well as in the comments below here, or in the description below, I should say, if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you're in the Discord for tonight and tomorrow night. It is one of the liveliest places for fun wrestling chat. We do polls on each match. Thank you, Andy Jessup, for being the poll master for all of that.
Yes, sir.
But listen, I want to give a warning. Sheriff McDonald is taking a nap right now, and he is arming up, looking for them spoiler posts in the group tonight. So hat tip to the sheriff for his contributions, Sheriff. But please do not post spoilers in the group tonight. Even those like gray area, I can't believe what happened in that match, without any deleted. Delete. They're gonna be gone. We're gonna break Sheriff Jared McDonald. And he's going to become broken
Got
Sheriff
2 days.
McDonald. Yeah.
2 days of broken Jared.
Just delete. He's just going to delete everything. He's been given strict instructions to take no prisoners, hold no holds barred.
Yeah. So you make it easy on the poor sheriff and keep those spoilers in the Discord. It's going to be 2 days of it, so it's going to be very interesting to see how we manage that to keep the spoilers out of there before the second half tomorrow.
Yes.
So that's gonna be a little wild. So yeah, the Wild West, Nick. We're having to figure things out on our feet, just like WWE is. But that being said, that's no excuse for us to hold you guys up for hearing what we have in store for you today, and what our lovely patrons sent to us, Nick. So let's get to the questions, and then it's WrestleMania time.
We still got a lot to do, but let's rock through these real quick and give them the best. We're going to kick things off with Brandon Monroe. He said, "Hey, fellas, on a weekly basis, I watch the clips from the week's Impact taping, and it made me think, what is your guys' opinion and thoughts on the history and story of Impact from TNA to Anthem to the current day Impact? Who have been some of your favorite wrestlers during its tenure, and what have been some positives and negatives in its life as a wrestling company? Thanks for everything you do for the community. And Chris White, I'm coming for you." Ooh. Shots fired. There's a lot of shots getting fired right now.
There's a lot of shots being fired over on the Facebook discussion page right now. If you haven't seen, there's a whole lot of promos being cut. Everyone's cutting promos on everybody else. There's some fantastic stuff in there. I saw Xander Gabriel's last night, and I was just like, oh my God.
I lost so hard at Royal Rumble, I tore my bicep.
Wow.
Damn! I see you, Xander.
Yeah, I know you feel them, Nick.
Yeah.
But yeah, so good promos. Check those out.
What are your thoughts on the overall history of Impact? Where they come from, where they are today? What are they doing? They're doing all their stuff on Twitch and replays. And I feel like, in a way, they're hitting a niche audience that nobody else really is. They're trying to get to that younger crowd that spends a lot of time watching live streams. And sometimes that's gaming, sometimes that's other thing. And I think that nobody else has really tapped into that quite yet, as well as Impact has. That said, they don't have the TV viewership that all of the other ones have. So,
yeah, they kind of have to, because they really did burn a lot of TV goodwill in the mid 2000 teens with some of the mismanagement going on in the company. They went through a whole bunch of transitional stuff. Looking back at their entire history, I have to admit that for the most of their history, TNA was kind of my blind spot, and I had to play catch up on a lot of their stuff. I did happen to catch. I was actually, my boys and I watched the very first TNA pay-per-view back in the day, and I'll be damned if I can remember watching it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I did catch it from time to time and try to keep up on it as much as possible. And it was certainly a very fascinating company that was trying to do its own thing with the 6-sided ring, the X division, where it wasn't really a cruiserweight division. It was just, they did crazy stuff.
Right.
It was, I think technically for a while you had to be 220 and under, but they were really loose with it. Like Kurt Angle was the champ at one point. Abyss was the champ at one point in the X division. Like they kind of came and went if there was a weight limit, and it was kind of arbitrary. But but again, you can't really argue the talent that went through there, either on their way to somewhere else, or that was built there. Whether you had AJ Styles and Abyss, Chris Daniels, or guys coming in from outside like Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle,
right?
Christian had a great career over there,
right?
And it really kind of fell apart when Russo and Hogan and all of that kind of poison was injected in the late aughts, early teens. And then Daisy Carter just didn't know what the hell she was doing. From every report, sweet lady, didn't know what she was doing.
Yeah.
And also just, I think the other thing I've heard is that the kind of the ego of Jeff Jarrett really played into a lot of the troubles that they had at any point, pretty much. So it was kind of always one of those companies where you just went, man, they were so close so many times and yet so far away.
Yeah.
and it's a miracle they're alive. That's the one thing I think historically people are going to look at and say, how the hell did Impact survive all the stuff in the aughts? Like all the crazy stuff that happened, it would be a whole show, Nick, just on all of the more than one show, maybe even. I've heard podcasts go for hours and hours on all of the nuances of the business dealings in the aughts of what happened with TNA, Impact. And that, if you go back when it was even NWA and the championship was the NWA championship for a while there, which ultimately, obviously, Billy Corgan got his hands on and split off when he was ousted from NWA, which was a fascinating time period as well. And one wonders, that's actually a good speculation, is what would have happened to Impact, to TNA, if Billy Corgan had actually been successful in buying it out and hadn't
like
gone
folding
over
folding it all together.
Yeah, or just what his vision was, because he actually had. I mean, he's shown with NWA and the guys he's working with over there, who are also ex-Impact guys, Scott D'Amore. Like they kind of know what they're doing in terms of presenting what they want to present. It's very specific. They're hitting a niche and they're nailing it. They're knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, one wonders what Impact could have been. But then that's kind of the whole story of Impact, is what would it have been if Hogan and Russo and all their guys had never gone there?
Right.
What would have happened if Jeff Hardy hadn't been a mess when he was over there in his matches with Sting? Like, there's a lot of what ifs with that company.
I mostly slept. There was two emotions that I had in the aughts with TNA. I had no idea who AJ Styles was at the time. I had no idea who Samoa Joe was at the time. Of course, I knew Kurt Angle. He was one of the one people that was like pulling my eyes in that direction. But I was so much of an Attitude Era WWF, WWE mark at the time. I scoffed and turned my nose up at the idea of a 6-sided ring. Like, what are you doing? This isn't MMA.
You don't like AAA? AAA. Man.
Yeah,
that was what I thought they were going for.
So
but, yeah.
I will say that I slept on it. I've gone back absolutely and watched some of those amazing matches with Kurt Angle and AJ Styles and Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
And then I kind of skipped part of my hiatus from wrestling in the late aughts and early 10s. And then I kind of came back and started keeping up with it again with Matt Hardy, Broken Matt Hardy coming up. And then
way late in it, yeah.
Yeah, and now I'm paying a lot more attention to it with what's going on between Brian Cage, Sami Callihan, Tessa Blanchard, all like in the past 2-3 years, I've really started keeping back up with it. And it's funny that they're coming back up at the same time that Corgan's coming back up with NWA, like we've seen in the last 6 or 8 months. So listen, it has not been one of my top watched promotions, but the funny idea is that I think it's got a lot of potential. I look at NWA and it's a proving ground that studio wrestling can still stand tall. It's also like there's innovation. AEW might be the biggest proponent here that there's opportunity to innovate in modern wrestling. So listen, there's all kinds of opportunities out there. I have the highest hopes for Impact. I think there's all kinds of stuff that they could do if they could get the right leadership, the right locker room, and funding. And that's what AEW proved.
I think they're in a good spot right now. I think they're in a good spot. They're building. It's kind of funny how people have stopped talking about Tessa as much because of all the stuff that came out about her being a bit of a backstage bully and possibly racist and all the rest of it. Like that's all just kind of went psst and quieted down. But at the same time, I feel like they're putting out a pretty consistently solid product right now. So there is a market for that. People are still watching it. It's just a matter of if they can grow that market. So, and I wish best of luck to them. I like a lot of the performers over there, as you said. So I'm in the same boat.
RVD doing threesomes on Twitch though is probably not a good idea long term. Let's not.
Well, that's why him and Joey Ryan have done like a modern right to censor over there now. Was it the cancel culture? So whatever they're calling it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I like how they're turning that ship.
Martin the Englishman with $13.04 in the tip jar, kicking us off.
Thank you.
Attaboy.
Thank you so much, brother.
Oh man.
Thank
Good luck tonight in the pick'ems. You got some pretty ambitious picks yourself, sir. I've been doing the spreadsheet for the last 2 or 3 hours that I normally do for all of these as you've sent your picks in to me, and Prepare your buttholes, folks. It's
Oh
gonna
my.
be ugly tonight. The picks are all over the place. There's not gonna be any one clear winner by the time we get to the end of this 2-day affair. But thank you for the tip, Mr. Martin. Next up, we got Josh Logan. Thank you, Brandon, for the great question, by the way. I feel like that could be an entire episode all on its own there with some love for Impact. Josh Logan next up. Alrighty, I'm going to get my money's worth and ask a question and make a demand this week. Firstly, is there anyone else who made their name outside of WWE and actually continued to succeed other than AJ Styles? Keith Lee is winning the Rumble next year. Change my mind.
No.
I don't want to change your mind,
I don't
but I
want to change
don't
your
think
mind.
you're correct.
I have to think. He might win it in a couple of years.
Yeah,
he's
I'm
still got to
thinking
wait.
2
He's got to
years
wait.
before that happens.
Couple years. I'm not going to say he's never going to win the Rumble, but I think it might be a while. The Rumble is like the way that they've been doing it is like that's like the top guys or guys they want to shoot to the top.
Roman's got a couple more Rumble wins in his belt.
Yeah,
in
man.
His belt.
Keith ain't headlining WrestleMania next year. I'll put it that way. Like think about it when you're going to have Keith Lee headline WrestleMania. We got a couple years yet, like maybe, but not next year. Okay, who made their name outside of WWE? This is tough because what do you define as major name? Google, stop. Shut up. The government is now screaming at me from my Google thing over in the corner here.
I had one in my head a second. Jericho is one I want to throw out there. He came in from WCW and landed his Y2J and knocked it out of the friggin' ballpark and has been on a tear for the last 20 years since.
But this is what I was going to say. What do you consider making your name? AJ was a champion in TNA. He was a champion in Japan. Like he was a big deal before he came to WWE. Jericho was Finn Balor is that would be a good one too. He was not as I would argue not as big or as well known as AJ. He was much more Japan based, whereas AJ was here. AJ is going to stand out as being phenomenal. He's going to stand out as being somewhat unique because of the length of his tenure and the breadth as well.
Right.
What I was going to say is what would we consider making your name somewhere else? Is it something like Jericho where you could be like a lesser champion in another company, like a lower mid-carder, and that's made your name, like people know who you are? Or would you have to be like a top guy somewhere else?
He said it in his second part, his call out of Keith Lee here. Keith Lee was PWG champion, only lost to Walter. And there's a reason. Well, hang on. There's he came into the NXT in the Performance Center in Full Sail, and people were already doing Keith Lee. Keith Lee. That's only stuff we saw in PWG,
right. That's
though.
A bunch of that's because everyone in Full Sail, they want to be like those people that know all the indie stuff, and they're like in with the underground crowd. That's like, no, man. That's like saying that people knew who Dead Kennedys were in the 80s and 90s. Like they didn't. They might know who the Dead Kennedys are now. That's late to the game. Yeah. Like Keith Lee, people didn't know who Keith Lee was. You could see it. You can see it in our group. A lot of our listeners didn't know who Keith Lee was. We're biased because we did. We knew who he was. We're in LA. We saw him work. He worked all over the country. Like people had an opportunity to see him, but he was very much an indie wrestler. And a lot of these guys were. No one knew who El Generico was when Sami Zayn came into the picture. They might know, like the indie guys knew, but it wasn't. I'm saying make your name as in like people know you. Like when Flair came to WWE, he was a household name.
Yep.
Right. He came over and he was only in WWE for like a short period of time, a year and a half at most. And then he left again. Well, then he came back in the 2000s and was a major fixture in WWE again. I can't say he was a top guy. It's definitely not apples for apples with AJ because AJ, again, came in and has been a top guy for years now. 5 years now.
Is Goldberg a fair one?
Goldberg, you could argue the same thing, where he was
made
just
a huge name with his streak over in WCW until the merger and everything. So,
but they still use him as a top guy. But he's more of like he's more of a one-off draw. You know what I mean? They use him now as a special attraction.
Yeah.
Mankind, for example, was a major fixture in WCW,
right,
and then a major fixture in ECW, and they repackaged him in W. That's the other thing, is that it's tough. It's tough to say because only recently have they allowed people to keep their identities and keep their histories. When Mankind first came into WWE, they completely repackaged him. He wasn't Cactus. I mean, they allowed Cactus Jack to show up later on, but he'd been Cactus Jack for years and years and years. And they allowed him to bring the gimmick back just because he had a very unique take on his character where he could be different characters. That's unbelievable that he was 3 gimmicks at once. Like, if you look at wrestling history, that's nuts that they allowed him to do that.
He had the stipulation on here and continued to succeed.
That's kind of what I was saying, is Mankind thrived. He thrived in WWE, but he was never like the top guy in WCW. He had some like second-tier feuds, like stuff with Vader, but he never really was the top guy. And I'm trying to think of who was the top guy somewhere else. Big Show, for example, was enormous in WCW, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
But you could argue he was never a top guy. RVD was one of the major guys in ECW, but he was never really a top guy there. And he came to WWE and took a while for him to get to the top, and he didn't stay at the top that long. I'm trying to think of who else. See, here's the thing. A lot of the guys they poached in the 80s were huge territory stars. You know what I mean? Most of their roster were guys who were enormous in their territory, but there wasn't the same idea of this, global awareness of who these guys were. Part of it was you didn't really know who these guys were. They would come in with these reputations, right, to the territories. Hulk Hogan was a massive territory star before he was poached by WWE.
Sure.
So
and then left and then came back.
Right, and then they made him huge.
Yeah.
So, but as far as AJ Styles, he certainly is unique in the modern era in terms of somebody. But then again, who else has had AJ Styles' career? Very few people.
No.
Very few people. You can't look out there and say.
Across 4 different promotions now, and he's been champion, or at least at the top of the card in all of them.
Yeah, he's very unique. There's not a whole lot of there's very few other guys that
you got to go
both.
Like Jericho.
Even Jericho has been most of the time with WWE, like a little time in WCW, he has Smoky Mountain, and then lots of WWE, and then a little bit of Japan. It's still not the same level as AJ. Like, he is a very unique beast. There's lots of ones that are similar that you could say they had their own unique path, but AJ's career in and of itself is just very unique.
Jacob in the chat with Booker T. I think that's a good example.
And I thought about Booker T, but then again, you had him being champ in WCW as they were falling off, and then he came to WWE and they buried him at first.
Yeah, I feel like he was an accidental one as part of the fallout from the invasion.
He's one of the invasion guys that ultimately had a better career than most of the other invasion guys.
Yeah,
but again, not apples for apples with AJ Styles. I still don't think it's on AJ's level in terms of the career he had before he came to WWE and the career he had in WWE. That's kind of why I discounted Booker. I thought about Booker, though. But WWE, they ran AJ through the gauntlet. They made him lose to Chris Jericho at WrestleMania, which a lot of people were pissed about. But then he came back and was like the top guy for a few years there. He had a whole huge title run and everything. Like, Booker never had that in WWE. King of the Ring is pretty much like his biggest accolade.
True.
True. I think he won the title though, didn't he? The heavyweight.
Yes.
Pretty sure.
Yes.
But he wasn't like the guy like AJ was the guy. I don't think. We could argue about that. But
AJ's been the guy wherever he's been, period.
Right. That's kind of what I'm saying.
And that's the trademark stamp of AJ Styles, is like he's the guy wherever he
goes
is.
somewhere and he's top guy.
Yeah. Martha
top
with
guys.
$5 in the tip jar. Thank you very much, Martha. Thank you,
Martha. Thank you very much. Very sweet of you.
And Josh, thank you very much for the question. I love that one. How people transition between companies and whether or not they continue to succeed is kind of a big question. Good one. Next up, Jonathan Malo asked not a wrestling question. Malo, I think it's Malo. I asked him about this the other day. I think it's Malo. Not a wrestling question, but with some of the movie talk you guys have done lately, I'm curious, how would you rank your top 3 favorite Joker performances? Hate to say it, but excluding Mark Hamill, since he was just voice. You're fired. You're not allowed to do that. The 90s cartoon is the best.
You can't fire Mark Hamill.
No. Almost every voice that I do
he is the best.
that has that somehow pulls from his performances. Hate to say it, but excluding him, he was just voice acting. Big Batman fan. Would love to hear your opinions.
Voice acting.
You need to go hang out with Tony Schiavone. And if you think Jim Cornette has a attic museum of wrestling, and Tony Schiavone's entire house is Batman. It's a lot of fun. Look it up if you didn't know. Yeah, big time. Top 3 performance: Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson,
Cesar Romero.
I gotta buck the system. Dude, Mark Hamill's right there with it, dude.
Joaquin Phoenix.
That movie was terrible.
Ooh, shots fired.
That movie was
But
terrible.
the movie was terrible. What was he terrible as Joker? Let's take the performance out of it.
It's hard to. That movie's hard to watch, man. And I've tried twice.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't like it at all.
Wow.
I'm not a fan. He got all these accolades and all these awards and all this stuff, and the best performer and all that stuff, and I'm just like, Heath Ledger set a bar that I don't think anybody's ever going to top. Sorry.
Is it because it's a poor man's Taxi Driver, and it's pretending that it's much smarter than it is, or what is it that?
Yeah, it's trying way too hard.
Right.
I thought Joaquin.
So who's
Phoenix
your number one Joker?
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. Same here. If we're excluding Mark Hamill, which I think is I'm gobsmacked.
Heresy.
I can't do that.
Heresy.
I've literally told Mark Hamill to his face over hot dogs that he's the best Joker. And he said, I don't know, Jack Nicholson. I'm like, Heath Ledger. I'm like, no, dude. He's performed that more than anybody else. He's performed the character more than anybody else. He has more nuances to the character. He's able to do the really cartoony, out there, wacky stuff, but also make him absolutely terrifying at the same time. He captures everything that you want in a Joker. Heath Ledger was even Heath Ledger, as great as his performance was, it was still a very one-note Joker in some ways. You know what I mean? If you look at Mark Hamill, the breadth of stuff he has, his Joker gets wacky, he gets funny, he gets silly. His is a little bit more of it keeps too cool. It's just I'm too cool to be really wacky. There's a couple of brief moments, but it's not on the level of Mark Hamill's. I think gun to my head.
Yeah, I want to give an honorable mention to. You can think what you want about the TV series Gotham. They never fully delivered they never saw it all the way through, unfortunately. I think his name's Cameron something.
Cameron Mew.
His was his shit all over Joaquin Phoenix's performance, if I'm being completely honest.
Wow.
I thought that was a better portrayal. Yeah. You could put Joaquin Phoenix and Robert De Niro side by side in Taxi Driver. I thought it was ironic that you also had Robert De Niro in Joker.
As king of comedy and Taxi Driver,
right?
Is just anyway. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. We got to get back to wrestling. I will throw a quick shout out to Wataru Takagi, who played Joker in Batman Ninja. If you don't know who that actor is, he's a Japanese actor. When they took Harry Potter over to Japan, he played Dobby. He was Hammerhead in One Punch Man. He played Claptrap in Borderlands when they went over to Japan. Garfield, he's actually a pretty big Japanese voice actor. So it's pretty cool that they got him to play Joker in Batman Ninja, which is like the anime Batman movie. Which is,
you had
by
me
the
in
way,
Claptrap. I'm done. Good.
Sick.
Yep.
Yeah. He's good. Anyway, throwing out
good
some
question,
love there.
Jonathan. You'll find some controversial stuff you start asking us about movies. Next up, Jardy DeWannamaker. Hey guys, do you think there is any chance of Sting showing up in the Boneyard match this weekend?
No.
They could set up a match between Undertaker and Sting for SummerSlam or next year's WrestleMania and give Sting a proper retirement match. Thank you guys for being awesome. Have a nice day in WrestleMania weekend.
Thank you.
I would love to see that, but it's just not happening. He's done.
I like Jardy booking.
Yes.
I am a fan of Jardy booking. Unfortunately, Sting's back and spinal stenosis have other plans for you here. I'm afraid, he's one of those guys who is unable to ever wrestle again. He's toast. Again, I'm not Sting's doctor. I'm not Sting. They could be doing some sort of crazy thing where they're hiding his actual condition, and they've done the same kind of radical surgery they did with Daniel Bryan and Edge, and he maybe has a couple more matches in him, but I think it's more like Stone Cold, where they're just going to leave sleeping dogs lie when it comes to Sting. I am 99.9% certain of that. I don't even know if he's going to show up as a character again. Would that be cool as hell? Hell yeah, dude. Would I love to see Undertaker and Sting? Yes. Would that mean Sting's probably going to go 0-3 in his matches, 0-2 at WrestleMania? Yes.
Yeah.
That's the only downside. They're never going to let Sting beat Undertaker. So I kind of don't want to see that match at this point.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. So.
I'm at this point, I'm regretting my picking of AJ Styles versus Undertaker, but I'm sticking with it because I'm locked in.
I don't know what you were thinking.
I'm locked in. I wasn't the only one in the pick'ems. I hope you guys didn't. I weren't influenced by me doing it. But it's crazy, but it's crazy times right now, and you never know what's going to happen with WrestleMania, but it's a boneyard match. And thinking back on it last night, I was like, why did I pick AJ Styles in a boneyard
Luckily, you
match?
haven't locked in your confidence bets yet, so you still have a chance to kind of save yourself.
It will be one of the lower ones for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jardy. Great question there. Unfortunately, I think Sting, outside of a GM perspective, as a stretch, producer backstage as a stretch. Yeah. I think that's all we're going to see of Sting at this point. Go watch the 24 on the network or the Chronicle, whichever one it was, where they showed his injury and what he had to go through. It was pretty heartbreaking.
I think Sting has stung.
Yeah. Next up, Rob Hutchins. Dubstep Rob is what he is going to be called from this point forward. Patron number 50. You have been permanently stamped, Dubstep Rob. Hello, gents. First and foremost, hope all is well in your world. Second, the tip train of last week got me wondering about the monetization of podcasts. I love that you don't play ads or read sounders midway through your program. I'm looking at you, Jericho. What makes the most money for you guys, tip jar or Patreon? What kind of percentage do the creators see from that? I guess the final question is, how can we support you more and more efficiently or effectively? Thanks for all the excellent content.
Thank you, Rob. How can you support us more effectively? I don't know. One thing I like for support is a good Omaha steak, and I find that Omaha steaks are the best steaks because – no, I'm kidding. Nick, this is actually kind of more your question because you do run the books for the show.
Yeah.
So I'm just actually going to sit back and let you run this one because I get a check.
First of all, the way that it works is – Patreon they take a small percentage. It's less than 10%. So Patreon is by far our largest monthly source of income. And it's only variable based on the number of patrons that we have. It's very linear as well, meaning that if we have more patrons, the percentage doesn't increase, right? If we have 1,000 patrons, the same percentage still goes to Patreon. So it's linear in that way. The tip jar is fantastic as well, but it's also very variable based on what anybody wants to give. And yes, PayPal does take their transaction fee out of that because it's viewed as a service that we are giving. Now, there's some disputes about that. Patreon is by far, in a way, the best way to do it. We don't make a very large percentage on merch. What I want to say, you asked a very poignant question. What is the best way to support the show? What is the most effective way to support the show? If you mean that monetarily, it's Patreon. If you mean that in general, it's word of mouth. It's the larger the audience gets out there, the more the other stuff is going to grow as a byproduct of that. So if we can get our YouTube subscriptions up to 1,000, that puts us in a different tier in the algorithm of YouTube. That's why we want to get to it's not just about the monetization and being able to do super chats and have ads on the videos. It also directly has a direct effect on the algorithm where we're placed in the recommendations of YouTube.
It's like inertia. It's like inertia.
It absolutely is. So right now we're pushing that giant boulder up a mountain, and we're trying to get over
Sisyphus.
That peak.
Definitely feeling Sisyphean.
Yes. There's two big hurdles. There's the 1,000 subscriber, and then there's the 100,000 subscriber. We're about to get over the 1,000 one. And there's kind of a little bit of a downhill kind of relief. But yeah, it's really comes down to everything has a percentage. We haven't really started doing ads because, frankly, I can say this because I also run Orbital Jigsaw. There's no easy way to do that. The reason Jericho does it so much is because they are backing up dump trucks of cash for him to read I'm talking about $50,000 to $100,000 a month. A month for him to say what he says on his podcast because every episode gets millions upon millions of downloads every week. Mm-hmm. So it's a different ball game when you compare those two. For right now, for us indie shows like this, direct support via Patreon or the tip jar is absolutely the best way to do it. I can't go out and get an ad deal for Blue Chew and expect that to be profitable for us because that is more of an affiliate relationship that we only get paid when you guys act and make purchases, right? So I've kind of made the strategic decision not to pursue a lot of those. We might in the future when we're big enough to garner an audience that may actually execute on buying stuff. But for right now, I feel like the best support is just directly with you guys. And we love having that kind of intimate relationship with you guys where it's direct and one-on-one and all of that without having to do a lot of ad buys and things like that. So
that's why when you hear an ad and they go, use code Y2J at checkout, that's when you use that, Jericho gets a piece.
Our Blueberry ad that we run at the beginning of every show is there's no monetization there. It's a business-to-business agreement that they're giving us a discount on products for us running that ad. We don't really make commission on that, but it helps a lot of people discover if they want to start a podcast for whatever reason, and they get a discount. So you guys get a benefit. We get free services from Blueberry from running that at the top of the show. So that's the breakdown. Full disclosure, I'm always going to be transparent with you guys. Thank you very much for that question. That's pretty much the breakdown. So there you go.
But it's also why, like, when tip trains like that happen, it actually percentage wise, literally it's major. It's major. So that was actually a really monumental thing for us. Like us being really taken aback by that was we were legit shook because that is a big deal. Like that's.
You know what else helps?
That's all for us when we look at the books and we say we're going to be making X amount a month. The tips is just gravy on top. We expect zero, and anything that we get is gravy. When that happens, it's mind blowing. So
totally,
yeah, that's why that was a big deal to us.
Yeah.
So and thank you guys again.
Thank you.
I from the bottom of my heart. Like good Lord.
Next up, Alex asks, "What's up, guys? How are you guys? Hope you guys are still making it okay. So far, so good.
Thanks to you guys. Yeah.
Thanks for keeping it going. My question this week is if you could bring any Let me try this again. My question this week is if you could bring any 5 gimmicks from Lucha Underground into WWE, AEW, or Impact, what would they be and where would you put them? For him, it would be Killshot in AEW, Mil Muertes in WWE, King they haven't shown they know how to handle luchadors. King Cuerno in Impact. I like that one.
Interesting.
Famous B in WWE. I really like that one.
Okay.
Son of Havoc in AEW. Kind of.
He's already kind of been. What's interesting about this is Killshot's currently in NXT/205 Live. Mil Muertes is on the Indies. King Cuerno is in NXT waiting to actually debut. Famous B, I don't know where he is, but if you've been watching NXT, they just debuted a guy called Malcolm Bivens. He used to be Stokely Hathaway in, I believe, Impact and a few other places.
And they've got the John Stone brand thing going with Chelsea Green, which is kind of Famous B 2.0.
Right. And then Son of Havoc has actually worked for AEW, technically on their first pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Matt Cross is Son of Havoc, has worked for AEW. So it's actually interesting. But I think he's talking about their actual gimmicks, like, the fact that he's this masked biker guy for Son of Havoc instead of, just Matt Cross working for them. I think some of the Lucha Underground gimmicks only work in Lucha Underground because it's just such a goony world that they create. So it's tough because I'd love to see storylines like they did in Lucha Underground somewhere else, but I don't think that most of them could pull it off. That being said, I've kind of wished that Pentagon, who is now just being portrayed as a luchador who's kind of mean in AEW, was a little bit more like, satanic undead ninja warrior with beef with the triads, like he was in Lucha Underground.
Right.
Like it was just a little bit more extreme, a little bit more crazy. Whereas, he's just kind of there in AEW. There's a few of those I would like to see. Like, so if Mil Muertes showed up, here's a guy who's unkillable. You can always bring him back with the Resurrection Stone. How are you going to do that in any other wrestling company? Like, there's the only one I can think of is Impact, where they've got Su Yung in the Dark World, and it's gotten a little bit goony in that way. You could kind of have Mil Muertes over there, but aside from that, you couldn't really pull it off anywhere else because they're somewhat based in reality. even Undertaker at this point is stripping away some of the mystique, even though they sometimes do the whole undead warlock thing. Like it's still he's Mark Calloway.
I think,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the kill shot military gimmick would have worked really well in WWE, especially if they had brought over a foil like a Dante Fox, and
Right.
I think that could have worked. You
Right,
do have
they
a lot
had
of
some
military viewership and fandom in the WWE, and they always
could bring up
appreciate and support the troops really hard. So I think that would have played. It's a lot of the reason why they've steered Lacey Evans into her Marine
military
Corps
background.
military background.
What if they broke
recently.
up the Forgotten Sons and used that storyline?
They could.
That'd
One
be
of the
interesting.
notes that you guys didn't hear on Jackson's promo is the rest of the message that he sent to us that was awesome, and basically saying, Semper Fi. They're all ex-Marines, right? In case you didn't know that. So it's fantastic. I think the WWE could do service to a really proper military storyline like they did with Killshot and Fox, leaving a brother behind to save yourself, that kind of stuff.
Right.
It
But it was
presents
a
a great
miscommunication.
dynamic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it was just yeah, exactly.
It was right. Now here's the thing. You know what gimmick, and this is funny considering the guy's history. You know what gimmick I think could work in any of those companies?
Marty the Moth.
Yep, exactly.
That's the next one I was going to say.
Marty the Moth, and you could even bring in Mariposa as well.
Sure.
Psycho stalker guy, on the level and intensity that he brought to that, I don't know if that's been done. They've had stalker gimmicks before. They've had some, oh, Austin's got a gun. Wendy. They've had stuff like stalker stuff before. They've never had anything, I don't think, that I can, off the top of my head, on the level of Marty the Moth.
Yeah.
The way that, like, the depths of depravity that guy got to. And you might not be able to get there at WWE. You could with AEW. You probably could with Impact. But the fact that Marty's not working right now is a damn crime, because that guy was fantastic.
Yep.
In Lucha Underground.
When you guys hear me talk about Brody Lee and the Exalted One and my hopes and wishes for it, it's basically on the level of Vampiro at the end of season 1. Like, I want him to mastermind something like what he did with Pentagon to turn him from Junior to Pentagon Dark in season 2. And, like, fulfill his destiny, right? Like some big existential story like that. That's what I want Exalted One to be doing. Not sitting around in a damn suit, eating steak, belittling people. Like, that's why I get so bent out of shape, because I see the potential in that. But, yeah, I love the Vampiro Pentagon storyline from season 1. There's so much dynamic in there in all kinds of different ways. I think you could pull something like that off in AEW. I don't think so in WWE. That's one that I would love to see.
Jay makes a good point. They did try the stalker gimmick with DDP, and I didn't even rate that because it was just so poorly done. Like, it was a joke.
Jokes about
what
was that?
When DDP came over in the Invasion, there was someone who was stalking Undertaker's wife, Sarah, and he pulled off the mask. Turned out it was DDP, and DDP went from being like a fan favorite, super over babyface, to creepy, weird stalker who couldn't beat Undertaker's wife in a match.
I don't even remember that.
It was abysmal. It was one of the lowest points of a really low, awful time in WWE as far as that overall everything with the impact Invasion was just so terrible.
It's amazing to me to see the level of talent and the amount of talent, if you combine PWG and Lucha Underground, that is now mainstream superstars across promotions in professional wrestling. The pun intended impact that those programs had and continue to have on modern wrestling today.
It's crazy. You go watch it and you're like, God, I know everyone on the show.
Yeah, somebody posted a PWG sort of superstar match. It was like an all-star match. I can't remember what that was. That wasn't the Battle of Los Angeles we went to. It was.
Well, it's funny because Lucha Underground was actually largely because the showrunners for that show went to PWG and were like, "This is fantastic," and Vampiro got in touch with them, and so they basically became a hybrid of PWG at the time and AAA. So it's basically a whole bunch of guys from AAA, a whole bunch of guys from PWG, and they made a show. Here's our show, and so it's crazy when you watch that show now, and pretty much everybody like the only person I can think of who's not working somewhere else, even AR Fox is in Evolve right now. Like, but Marty, I don't know where the hell Marty is. Yeah. Like, pretty much
he's on Twitch doing workouts, which he's still as crazy as he was on Lucha Underground. Go watch his Twitch stream. It's a lot of fun. Before we move on to the next one, I want to say thanks, Alex. That was a fantastic question. But booyaka, 619, Gerardo Garcia has dropped $6.19. in the tip jar.
Thank you very much,
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
San
thank
Diego
you.
represent.
Yeah, indeed. We miss your Shane shoe watch, by the way. Just wanted to throw that out. I think that was Gerardo that used to do
because
that.
we don't really have Shane.
That's true.
There's
Fair
no
point.
Shane.
And I'm not mad at that. That's fine.
We can't do the Rowan shirt watch when there's no Rowan.
That's true. Next up, Billy asks, hope you're well out there in the groceries of Colorado, Mr. Stickler.
Good luck, man.
Excuse me. Hoping all is well in your respective sides of the
Don't
world,
do
my
that,
friend.
Nick. Oh, God.
Coronavirus. No, I can't say it. Last week, my question was maybe a bit negative sounding, so let's be positive. WrestleMania 17 is widely regarded as the best WrestleMania. Hard to argue. Yeah, it is. But what's the next couple? Sure, many of them had good moments, but overall, I think 19 was a close second. Shawn Michaels and Jericho was great. Good women's match. Lesnar and Angle put on a technical classic to close the show. Even Booker T and Triple H was okay outside of the ending. 23 was also up there as well. If nothing else, the two world title matches were two of the best of the year with Shawn Michaels and John Cena and Undertaker Batista. So the question here is, what are the next couple if we regard 17 as the best WrestleMania?
I mean, you could say 17 through 21 were all pretty solid.
Yeah. I was going to say 20 goes to Hollywood.
Yeah. 21
21
was Hollywood. 21 was Hollywood. Wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure I remember the double X. I'd have to double check on that though.
21 was
fact checkers in the chat. Go check for us.
8 was underrated, I thought. And then 14, of course, the with Michaels and Austin in the main event with Mike Tyson as ref. That was actually a solid show from start to finish. A lot of great Attitude Era gimmicks in that one. It's a really good nostalgia one. And then we've had a couple of really good ones lately. 30 was of course superlative. If you go back and look at that card, it was great across the board. That was the one where Undertaker lost and Bray lost. Is the only problem with that show. And even those, like, that's a momentous moment for Undertaker. It's just hard to watch him actually almost die. and then to actually watch Bray's career almost die in that moment. But aside from that, overall, great WrestleMania top to bottom. And 31 is actually, I think, underrated as well as being a fantastic WrestleMania with a ton of really memorable moments, great matches, good outcomes, and of course the Seth cash-in at the end of the Brock Roman match, which is one of the loudest pops, if not the loudest pop I've ever heard in my life.
Yep.
So, yeah, there's a couple more for you.
Here's why I was remembering 20. And Jacob confirmed it was 21 goes to Hollywood. So thank you for confirming that. 20, why it was top of my mind is because I've been watching too much Dark Side of the Ring and too much Ruthless Aggression. We had Benoit, Triple H, and Michaels in a triple threat for the World's Heavyweight Championship. Undertaker and Kane. We had
wasn't 20? 20 is the one where Benoit and Eddie had both of the titles at the end, and it was a great finish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Guerrero beat Kurt Angle to retain. That was a big one. Yep. So 20 was one of the ones that I hold in high regard. 17 also as well. 21 is memorable because of going to Hollywood. So, and I agree with you. 31, the build for Daniel Bryan was fantastic. The Seth cash-in was fantastic. I'm trying to think of other, but all those are all like memorable moments. Like Billy was saying, they're not an overall pay-per-view.
Like three had a memorable moment, but wasn't a great pay-per-view. That's why I threw 8 in there, because 8, like, there's that what was it? It was Hart and Piper that had a great match. There's a bunch of other matches on that card. I remember
overshadowed by the Silver Dome and Andre and Hogan.
Right.
So yeah.
Yep. Yeah. There you go. There's a few more.
Good question, Billy. Next up, Josh asks, hey, guys, first-time question. This is not Josh Logan. This is Josh Sullivan. I need to start differentiating. We have multiple Joshes now. Thanks for the amazing community of fans you have gathered. Thank you very much. I'm amazed to see such civil discourse on wrestling after so much bickering on most comment threads. We take a lot of pride in that, and we've been very harsh with people from time to time for trying to steer things in that direction. So, no. Naughty. Don't do that stuff. So again, thank you guys. You're welcome. Thank you for calling that out. To my question, this is a little off the mainstream. But I'm a huge fan of Chikara Pro Wrestling and was wondering if you guys had ever seen any, and if yes, who were your favorite standout talents that you saw? Now, I have not. I see you over there nodding your head, Sir Ian Dangerous. So I'm going to step out of the way and you jump in there.
Well, and unfortunately, Chikara is another one that it's a bit of a blind spot for me as well. I've seen a bunch of Chikara matches, but unfortunately, it's one of those companies I never followed the storylines enough to really get invested in those. Unfortunately, I mean, I know a lot of the talents that are over there. I've seen Ricochet work over there, Chucky T, obviously. Back when Cesaro was there, it was Claudio Castagnoli doing work with Chris Hero. Seen a bunch of that stuff, and obviously Mike Quackenbush. You can't say Chikara without saying his name. So,
right.
I've seen a lot of little things, but I don't know enough about it to say that I'm any sort of authority on Chikara. And it's one of those ones where every time I watch it, I'm like, damn, I should be watching more of this one. It's like that. And Progress is another one that I'm like, I tried to like keep up with, and I just never could. And every time I watch a Chikara or a Progress show, I'm always like, damn, I should really watch more of that. DDT Pro Wrestling too. I want to get more into All Japan. There's all kinds of ones that I just, there's only so many hours in the day, and I just haven't had a chance to really dive into Chikara beyond what I have seen, which I pretty much universally have enjoyed.
Yeah, I struggle to keep up with Impact and Ring of Honor. Some of these off the beaten street brands are a little bit harder to keep up with sometimes. So yeah, thank you. Good question.
Very good.
Believe me, if I didn't need to sleep, all I would do was watch wrestling 24 hours a day. I promise.
Yeah, I put on. Maybe I'll that's when I'll start like putting more of their stuff on.
Yeah,
nice little bit. It's just was one of those things where I'm reminded, like, oh yeah,
where are they based out of?
I should watch more Chikara. They're based out of a few places, man. The ones that I've seen have been in America, but I'm trying to. They're out of Pennsylvania, I want to say. So yeah, U.S. for the most part, but they employ a lot of luchadors. So yeah, and I've seen them use some Japanese guys too. So yeah,
I'll have to check that one out. Thank you, Josh. Thanks for calling that out. And thanks for all the good comments. I appreciate it. Next up, Brad Shepard, not ringside news. Brad Shepard. Hey guys,
we have to define that.
Yes. So got a couple of questions here today. First is more of an observation. After reading Titan Screwed, which talks about WWE from the end of 96 through the end of 97 and the Montreal Screwjob, the Monday Night Wars, and the beginning of the Attitude Era, it was brought up several times how Vince would have that one shiny toy wrestler he wanted to push, and then he would wholesale dump to jump to the next shiny toy. This was obviously Bret Hart, then Shawn Michaels, and then Stone Cold. Why does Vince seem to focus on just one wrestler to push and not focus on the product as a whole? Do we want to talk about that one, or do we want to read the second part first?
Let's do that first. That's a pretty big question.
Second, you want to do this one first, or read the?
Yeah. Let's do that real quick. That's
why does Vince have one guy seemingly?
Because he has only so much attention span. He's got only so much ability to focus on multiple things. It's a huge company. There's lots of moving parts, and it's actually something we've talked about on this show before. That Vince seems to tend to hyper focus on pushing one guy, whether it's Hogan, whether it's as he said, Stone Cold, Bret, Shawn Michaels, whatever.
Rock.
Shawn might have gone longer if he hadn't hurt his back. Stone Cold might have gone longer if he hadn't hurt his neck. Rock might have gone longer if he hadn't gone to Hollywood. And then you have John Cena. And I think that John Cena is as close as you're ever going to see to Vince getting what he wants out of somebody.
Yeah. He's trying to do it again with Roman Reigns.
He's been trying
for 5 years.
And the problem is, if you look at his record, it's either been stymied by injury or ego.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why, and he doesn't, I don't even think realizes it when he says, people they're such wusses now in my company. They're not grabbing for the brass ring. Well, because you created an environment where people don't want to rock the boat because you don't want them to rock the boat, because in the past people have rocked your boat and it screwed you over. So he's created an environment where people don't rock the boat. You don't screw with the big man, or he buries you. And so they're a little bit more nervous to, throw their egos around. So yeah, that's unfortunate because Vince does have a little bit of myopia with that. And I think it's one of the big detriments of his company. It's like either he likes you or he doesn't. If you're not in the sunshine, then you're in the dark. We've seen it with recently with Cedric and Ricochet, where they're just gone all of a sudden.
They're being repackaged. Is this the stove is hot kind of thing where he's just been burned literally and figuratively over the years between you had Stone Cold and The Rock leaving. Cena, like you said, was the savior in a sense of, from the mid 2000s and beyond. But then you had CM Punk as well, and everything that went down with
Punk,
that.
He pushed him, but he was never going to be the guy, the top guy. You know what I mean? He was always going to be like, kind of like the little bit below.
But that was part of his that was part of his hype, though. So I don't. There was probably some level of support for doing that.
Vince saw money.
Yeah.
He's not stupid. He saw money in it, but Cena was still the guy. It's kind of like right now, like Seth had a shot, Kevin Owens had a shot, Roman's still the guy.
But my point, my original question here, my point is that I don't know if he's still trying. He's trying to do that with Roman on it. It seems like it's on and off from time to time. Maybe that leukemia stuff has a lot to play with that. But I'm wondering if Vince is tired of getting burned and not investing that level of investment into any one particular superstar. And that has this weird side effect of kind of watering things down a little bit when you don't have the big hype of one big guy coming out anymore. Undertaker might be the best example of the one that still comes out and garners that level of hype. But
yeah, that's tenure and just the nature of his gimmick as well.
And he's proven reliable. He's over 30 years now.
And if you think about it, the only other person that had been around as long as him were Kane and Goldust. And
Jericho,
Kane was
until a few years ago.
Yeah, Jericho. Although technically Taker's been around in WWE longer than Jericho.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you're saying. But it was more that only Taker was really being used in that way. What were they doing with Goldust before he ditched the place? Nothing, and he was a great worker. Right. So and that's also the problem with him having a huge roster is it's just always been his thing. He's never really been able to look at more than just what you got today for Stone Cold? And that's actually something that you hear in interviews where people are interviewed about those times, and it's just Vince comes in and goes, what you got for Stone Cold? What do you have for The Rock? He's not asking, what do you have for Mankind? He's not asking, what do you have for Perry Saturn? He doesn't care, right? He's only caring about the dudes at the flagship, and everything else will fall in line.
Yeah.
So.
Second part of his question, and kind of goes along with the first part, why does it seem that WWE always refers to one particular wrestler as the one that packs the house at shows? I can understand studying merchandising trends and such, but wouldn't you think, with prices of tickets and such, that a lot of people are there to see more than one wrestler? If you think only one wrestler is bringing in all the fans, then why even have multiple matches on a show and just focus on that one match or story? Just trying to understand why WWE has such a problem reading their fans and getting the company over on a whole, rather than just trying to get one person over.
That's actually going a long ways back to when it was a bit more of like a carnival kind of thing. And it also goes to like sporting events. People come for the main event, but you got to give them more for their money than just one match. You have to give them more than one person. You have to have, when you go to the circus, it's not just, there's some people that come for the trapeze, there's some people that come for the clown, some people come for the elephants. Whatever the main attraction is, whether it's the Zamboni brothers doing their crazy acrobatics, whoever's bringing in the people, the marquee talent, the ones that are the top of the bill, that's exciting everybody, you still have to fill out everything else. And that it goes for all forms of this kind of entertainment, where they've got to, but that's also why I think as Vince, as an old school dude, sees everybody else as being lower tier. Like they're the appetizers. Okay, you've only got one steak.
Yeah.
And everyone's there for the steak. And you can give them the fries, and you can give them the mashed potatoes, you can give them the zucchini, and you can give them the rice, and you can give them the whatever, the duck l'orange, you can give them the shrimp. But they're there for the steak. Now, not everybody's there for the steak. Some people might actually be there for the other stuff. But he's only concerned about the steak because that's what he's basing his whole thing on. This is a steak restaurant.
Yep.
Right? And he drives everything for that, right? So when it comes to merch sales, who are the people that have the most merch out there? The people that are selling the most merch. And it seems like it's redundant, and it is. It is kind of it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a self-ending cycle where you've got guys like Zack Ryder, and you're like, why isn't he getting over? And he's sitting there going, well, they never have any of my merch at the tables. Like you have to search online to find Zack Ryder merch. If you really like Zack Ryder, you can find his merch, but it ain't going to be at the tables at any show. That's all going to be Becky Lynch and Roman Reigns, So it is a bit like, it is Vince definitely driving it towards those people like, hey, everybody, remember, you're here for the steak. I ain't promoting the steak, so you're here for the shrimp. You're here for the damn steak.
Right.
Don't you forget it.
But I'm
and most people are.
vegetarian.
Well, that's fine. We've got some zucchini for you over here. Don't
Yeah.
worry. You can still come in and enjoy your. Look. We do have zucchini. No. We got zucchini. Come on in. You should still come in too.
Right.
Eat. Just most people are here for the steak.
The closest example I know to give is if you go to your homepage, if you go to youtube.com, logged in as yourself, who's at the top of the page? It's the steak. It's the big users. It's not your subscriptions. It's the people they want you to see. It's the people with the biggest audience that drives the highest ad revenues.
Right.
A la has the highest prices on merch.
It's what we were saying earlier about inertia.
Yeah.
Once it starts, once you're a big person on YouTube, they push you more on top of people's pages. Then more people watch it, and it just grows and grows and grows.
Yep.
Same sort of idea. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Not Ringside News, Brad Shepard. Appreciate the questions. That's a lot of good stuff there. Next up, Sean Clark, Mr. Mop Man himself.
The Mop Man.
Well, since wrestling has been so lackluster, I'm just going out there for what's your favorite pizza. Favorite toppings, favorite local spot, and favorite chain spot. Keep on keeping on, everybody. We get through this together, even when we are separated.
Well
Thank
said.
you, sir.
Well said, brother.
Mr. Moment of Positivity.
Seriously.
Just keeping it positive. I love it. What
Love
is
it.
your favorite pizza, Ian? Forget brand or forget chain or any of that kind of stuff. What is your favorite? What's your go-to pizza?
Pepperoni, mushroom, ham, garlic.
I'm a all the toppings, no black olives kind of guy.
I can get with that.
Because all I taste is black olives when there's black olives on the pizza.
Not a fan of the peppers. That's me and peppers. Like if you put peppers on it, all I can taste is the damn peppers.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So I could do without peppers, but yeah, you can pretty much any kind of meat. You can pretty much any kind of meat. I'll even mess with anchovies sometimes.
Outside of chains, a la Papa John's, Domino's, Pizza Hut, etc., what is your favorite local spot for pizza in your area?
Just to clarify, Papa John's is not pizza. It's actually recycled cardboard that they've taken the white greasy stuff that builds up under your sink, and they put that on top, along with some like old tomatoes they dug out of the garbage and spread it on top. It's not actually pizza. Favorite local spot? There's a joint up the street for me called very originally it's called Delicious Pizza, and I don't know what the hell they make their crust out of, but it's basically like artisan bread, only as a pizza crust, and then they use it's spendy. I get it very rarely because it is spendy because they use all really nice ingredients because it's LA and we fancy.
Yeah,
but it's LA is not known for its pizza.
No,
it's not. And with good reason, because most of the pizza here sucks. It ain't. I've been to New York. I've been to Chicago. I've been all around. Our pizza here sucks.
The pizza's terrible in LA.
New York is the real pizza. I'm putting that out there.
Yep.
I am an absolute acolyte of the New York pizza. LA sucks, but Delicious Pizza is fantastic. One of the best places I've had in LA. What about you, Nick?
For me, I made the mistake of going to college on Long Island, New York. So I was spoiled as a teenager by having infinite access to amazing pizza. Pretty much on every corner, there's you could get 7-Eleven pizza in New York, and it's amazing. Like,
by the way, speaking of which, while we're talking about New York pizza, Kyle in the chat just said that controversial take, New York pizza is vastly overrated. And you know what, Kyle, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, even if you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine.
So I'll say my favorite local spot that we found here in Raleigh is a place called Brothers of New York. And it's a legit family-run joint. They've got 3 or 4 locations here in the greater Raleigh area, but they are Brooklyn-based. They are, and you go in there and you get a pie, and it's called a pie, and it's called a slice. So you can get a slice with any toppings you want on it, and you can get a pie with any toppings you want on it. They certainly have their own specialties, but they also have wings, strombolis, calzones, lasagnas, all kinds of stuff. It's like you would go into Port Jeff or Islip or anywhere on Long Island or in Brooklyn for that matter and find just a pizzeria, and you walk in and they've got the whole tray with all the pies that they made for the day. Fantastic. I absolutely love it. We order it, and it's reasonably priced, too. So we were very fortunate to be introduced to Brothers in New York. Shout out to you guys if you happen to be listening to our little wrestling podcast here in Raleigh, but it's fantastic. What about chain spot? What's your go-to chain spot? If you
round table.
That's not a.
My top 3.
Is that a chain?
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
I thought we
a
were
chain.
talking about like Domino's or Pizza Hut or a franchise.
Round Table is a franchise.
I've
it absolutely
never heard of it.
You've never heard of Round Table Pizza?
No.
Oh, Nick, I'm gonna learn you next time you come out to LA, man.
Well, if it's just available in LA, that's not really.
It's not. No, it's all over. What do you mean
right.
you never heard of Round Table? Chat, help me out here.
I've never even heard that. Esme said Shakey's. Yeah, Shakey's I've heard of. I definitely lean on the Domino's side of the world. In the 80s as a kid and in early 90s as a kid, it was mostly Pizza Hut here in the Carolinas. But they went to absolute dog shit. One of the things I do remember when I was broke and in high school and late 90s time frame is Pizza Hut used to do these like all you can eat buffets for $8. And it was just all the pizzas. What was the one that CC's Pizza? That was the one. You go in for like $3 and you could just.
What have you done, Sean? Look what you've done to us.
Eat pizza for 4 hours and all of the crap for like $3 when you were a broke teenager or broke college student.
I know what I'm having during WrestleMania.
Yep.
Pizza.
Beer. Oh, pizza. Yeah. All
pizza
right.
and beer. Yeah. Well, goes well together.
Thank you, Sean. Great question. Love that stuff. Andy Jessup, next up. With this sudden and forced change in the way wrestling is done, do you see a permanent change in the presentation of wrestling? What do you think those could be? You guys are amazing and deserve all the love. So are all my fellow phenomenal ones. I love each and every one of you equally. And yes, that love goes away when we're all losers Sunday night. The championship comes back home. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see.
He's throwing down. He's throwing on the gauntlet. Ex-champ.
Right.
Ex-champ Andy Jessup.
So I love you
he's been to the promised land.
I guess is the question.
He's been to the promised land before, and he's saying that, he's not going to let the love he has for all of us get in the way of him attempting to dominate us, which he won't be able to do because obviously you and I are going to come in first and second, Nick. So it's fine.
Right. His question was, do you see is there a permanent change
in the presentation of wrestling?
Yeah.
I think WWE is going to snap right back to what it was doing before with maybe like we might notice a couple of production stuff that they were like, that was a good idea. But I think that overall, no, it's just going to go right back the way it was.
Yeah. I do too.
Again, minus a couple of production things. Like I doubt it because they like showing the crowd size. So they're not going to keep the hard cam facing the stage. But I could see like maybe they figured out like, hey man, it's actually really kind of cool to have the camera guys over here or whatever. But I have a feeling, I mean, they've been doing it for decades. I don't think a couple of months is going to suddenly change the way that they've been doing it.
Part of the whole presentation is that wide shot of the wrestler coming down the ramp with a whole screaming crowd behind it. Like that, we're going to go right back to that kind of stuff. It would be interesting to see the hard cam changed to face the ramp and the Tron, but you're going to have all kinds of lighting issues. You're going to get shit blurred out. That's one of the reasons they don't do that, is because of how intense those lights are coming off the Tron. It blows the cameras out, and it's almost uncontrollable. Go back and watch Edge coming out at Rumble. Watch how blown out and overexposed that whole shot got. As far as permanent changes, I don't know if there are any, man. I think we've figured out how to do a wrestling show at this point. From a production standpoint.
Yeah, I think they have their way they want to do it, and they're going to go right back to it as soon as possible because they're comfortable with it.
Yep, exactly. Next up, Martin asked, who is your go-to character in 2K WWE games? I think I said this on the Twitch stream. I'm terrible at actually playing the game. What I'm good at is the creative side of it, like coming up with folks and dressing them and coming up with their names. And that's all I've done for the past. I think I've played 3 to 4 of them in the past 10 years. I think it started with 16, 17, 18 I definitely played. And then I got 20 to do the BWO universe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know that I ever spent a lot of time playing matches. I was creating stuff.
See, I have played them over the years, and I tend to do the same thing in most video games, whether that's, Skyrim or Dark Souls or any of the video games that I play.
Yeah.
If it's any kind of adventure game or any kind of game where you have to fight, any combat game, I tend to be the tank. I'm always the tank. The bigger, slower dude who, takes a couple of hits, but then one hit and he'll take you down. I'm always playing Taker. Taker or Kane are my dudes. So, yeah.
All right. Good call. Thank you, Martin. Next up, Brian asks, while this is obviously not how we want to see our wrestling presented, do you think WWE may try and use this as a partial reset on some talent and presentation after the only WrestleMania that's too big for one night? Maybe reevaluate his current talent and try new things like he did during the transition from the New Generation to the Attitude Era, and again from the Attitude to Ruthless Aggression. Anyway, hope everyone is healthy and safe, and thanks again for putting on awesome shows. Here's what I'll say real quick is that Vince is never short on ideas of things to try. Vince is never
for better or for worse.
For better or for worse. Ruthless Aggression, it's been presented to us that they really didn't know what to do post Stone Cold, post Rock.
Right.
That's what drove them from 6 to 9 million viewers every week. So if you've watched that show, they highlight a few things. They introduced new superstars. They had the invasion stuff happen. They had the Elimination Chamber, the Money in the Bank. All of these things get introduced. There was all kinds of innovation happening throughout the decade. Do I think they could still come up with some new stuff? Hell yes. You've got Paul Heyman, and you've got Pritchard's back. You've got all kinds of stuff. What I think is some new ideas need to get ingested here. And I'm not sure with that old stable of guys from the 90s if that's going to be sort of allowed to happen or even encouraged.
Yeah, what I was hearing him say was, do you think this will be a partial reset for some characters? And I read that as repackaging. And I think that they were already in a transitional place on a few characters. Some guys further along than others, like whatever the hacker gimmick is on SmackDown, Mustafa Ali. And whatever they're planning on doing with Ricochet and Cedric. And there's a few other guys that, like, if they do stop and take a hiatus after WrestleMania, which is a rumor, or if they go to minimal storyline, they're going to have a lot of opportunity to really repackage guys. Will they? They might. I mean, that's as good a time as any. WrestleMania is a good, like, hard stop to storylines. A lot of things are going to wrap up, and then you'll have the opportunity to do that. Could they? Yeah, I think it's likely, and for some people, maybe necessary. So, yeah, hope so. Actually, I hope they do try it.
Yeah, it's absolutely necessary on some talent, but I have no bearing on or idea of like who or how many. I'm more interested to let's baby steps, right? Let's get back to where we have crowds again. Let's make sure that beyond Monday, we did hear that AEW has taped 2 months worth of content that they can have for TV. So far, all we know is that WWE's got Monday Night Raw done. Beyond that, we don't know. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty out there in the world right now about when we're going to get it back. Let's get it back first, and then we can start talking about, like, what superstars. Is there a big transition here between eras? Are we going to transition out of the PG era into whatever the next era is? Maybe. I don't know how much,
the post-crisis era.
Right.
Good Lord.
Exactly. The post-apocalyptic era, something like that. Who knows? Is everybody coming out in masks and face shields? Wrestling with latex gloves on. I don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows what's about to happen in the next couple of months, man. You can see all the data you want, but there's a lot of stuff that's gonna change here in the next couple of months. What won't change is this show will continue to go on. As long as I have internet and power, this show will go on.
Right. Until the infrastructure collapses, we will continue to do the show.
Which is actually the really scary part. When we
move on. Come on.
Don't
get on that.
Thanks, Brian. Great question. Next up, Esme. Buenas tardes, papas. Buenas tardes.
Why would you say it like that?
Because she wrote it in Spanish.
Okay.
I wasn't trying to do like some Don Juan. Buenas tardes, papas.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. Español es bueno. El Latino
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
es en la casa, baby. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Happy WrestleMania Day, indeed. If Edge had never gotten injured, what would his career might have looked like? Apologies if this has been asked before. If it has, follow-up question, what's your favorite Mexican dish?
Ooh. What would Edge's? Are we doing that first? Or
it's hard to beat a wet burrito with enchilada sauce and green chile salsa verde on it.
Are you craving coming back to LA all of a sudden, sir?
Listen, all right, I have to tell a story here. So you think about you think about Edge for a second. Okay. Last night here in the neighborhood in Raleigh, somebody said, "Hey guys, good news! We found a taco truck to come to the neighborhood," and I was like, Because if there is anything I miss about living in Los Angeles, it's proper Mexican food. So when I saw that it was like they had the whole menu, they had gorditas, they had tortas, they had burritos, tacos, quesadillas, everything, right?
Tortas.
Tortas.
Enchiladas.
Yeah,
I love how you all of a sudden you start getting real Latino. When as soon as you start saying Mexican food, you're like tortas, tacos, guacamole.
Because I respect the language.
Okay, go on.
Anyway, I got super excited. When it showed up, it looked like one of the clown's truck from Twisted Metal. It was this tiny little short van. It had 2 people in it, and I ordered like one of everything. I'm not kidding, ass Esther. I got a burrito, I got a quesadilla, I got like 6 tacos. I just loaded up, and I went home salivating because I was like, oh my God, proper Mexican food finally. It was terrible. It was so bad, and all it made me want to do is go to La Fogata in Van Nuys and just pig out on proper Mexican food. There is no Mexican food like SoCal. Like I'm sure Mexico has great Mexican food, but there's something about, I don't know if it's in the water, it's in the tortillas. There's something different about Mexican food in Southern California, and if there's one thing I miss more than Surrey and Dangerous, it's Mexican food.
Oh. Well, thank you, man. That's
proper Mexican food. But a wet burrito, a wet shredded chicken burrito, that just does something to your soul, man. I can't describe it. Oh.
Yeah, apparently it stuck with you. I don't know. You can pretty much throw any kind of Mexican food at me, and I'm game. I'm down.
Also, green chili in Santa Fe, in New Mexico.
Green chili pork tamale. Is just that's. Mwah! I will be lying dead by the side of the road if you give me 6 of those, because I'll just be in a coma.
The few times I've been to Mexico, the treat of Mexico is actually finding a proper mole sauce. And some of those are hard to find in Southern California as well. There's 1 or 2 places that I know of. One's in the Valley. I can't remember the name of the joint though, but there was a time I went to Mexico City, and I had someone take me to a Mexican place that was off the beaten path. And that's one of those moments where you're like, shit, should I call somebody?
Right.
But you walk in and it just, the smell, and the old Mexican grandmother comes out and gives you like a bowl of chips with.
By the way, if you ever
salsa,
do come to LA and get stuff, if you ever go into a Mexican restaurant and there's not a grandma over in the corner making the tacos and burritos by hand, like making the
rolling up the corn husks,
the tortillas, the tortillas by hand, get out. It's not real.
Yep, exactly. All right, so actual question here. What would Edge's career have looked like if he had not been injured?
And by the way, that's just Mexican food. We could get into like Central and South American.
We're running long
too.
here. We got shit to do. We got WrestleMania to get to. Come on.
And I'm now starving. You've got us on food.
Pizza
and I'm just like,
Mexican food. Damn you all!
God, I want it. Edge. I mean, Jesus, you can only imagine that it would have been even more legendary than it already is. Yeah. I mean, that was his prime. He was in his prime. He could have been top guy in that era, because that was like, CM Punk era. The rise of the Shield, the rise of a lot of the guys who now are at the top of the card, and he would have been, one of the older guard, like a Randy Orton, like a Sheamus, who I think is, you haven't seen as much of him because he's been out and injured and whatnot. Yeah. But I think that he would have actually connected those dots between those eras. I can only imagine. I mean, that's the thing, is he's already a Hall of Famer. You can't really be too much more Hall of Famey than he already is. But he would have been. I think he would have been even more legendary. To have had even more legendary matches, big matches.
If there's somebody besides John Cena throughout that whole era that has had the potential to have as many title reigns, as many big championship matches, as many main events, even more so than he already had,
Been Randy Orton.
No, I think it would have been Edge.
I think Edge would have been a strong third to those, especially once Batista left.
Yeah.
I think that Edge, especially with the rise of, like, CM Punk and Edge could have had some really amazing stuff, and CM Punk might have actually gotten his WrestleMania main event instead of The Miz. I think that things might have gone differently if Edge had been around, but we'll never know.
Speaking of great food,
all we have to do is be grateful that he's back now.
Esme with the Omaha steaks again. That's fantastic. I love it. You know what? Speaking of great Mexican food,
Yo,
Omaha
you ever
steaks.
gonna
Next time you're making a burrito, cook up a fabulous Omaha tenderloin.
a little Omaha asada? I'm not mad at it.
Yep.
Come on now.
If you've never done the pilgrimage to Albuquerque or Santa Fe, though, to get proper green chili.
Oh no, I've done it. I came back with a whole big
I'm sure you have,
frozen
but
bag
I'm
of it.
talking about just
I'm
in general audience.
I'm not a big like red salsa dude. You throw some green salsa my way, any kind of green chili or green salsa, I'm an absolute fiend. I've got 2 things of green Tabasco in my fridge right now, and I'm gonna run out within a week. And
one of the worst mistakes Taco Bell
that's the
ever made
apocalypse
was
for
getting rid of that green salsa, that Verde.
yeah. Oh no. Oh, don't triggered. Don't get me started. Move on.
Okay. Thank you, Esme. Great questions. Next up, Kyle Cotton asks, tried asking this in an earlier mailbag, but just missed the cutoff, so here goes. After seeing Becky's truck over the past few weeks, it got me curious. If you were to make a reboot of the classic Cannonball Run film, or Wacky Races, if you aren't familiar with the film, with current WWE and AEW wrestlers, who are your teams, what kind of vehicle are they driving and why? Oh, man.
That's a big one. Let's just brainstorm some fun, like who would drive what. I mean, let's just say WWE versus AEW are the teams. Who's driving what? I mean,
let's bring all the historical stuff in. Let's have Stone Cold in a beer truck.
Naturally.
Let's have Kurt Angle in the milk truck.
Although Stone Cold did also have a Mack truck like Becky did.
Did he really? I thought he had a big pickup truck.
No, he had a big old Mack truck at one point. I think it's a direct
We'll put Roman in an ambulance.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Alexa Bliss in a really small pink Miata. Mankind in like an old beat up Oldsmobile. It's 1976.
Yeah, like a Pontiac
Cutlass.
GT Cutlass. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
86 Cutlass. Yes.
It's just messed up. Basically the one that you see crashing at the beginning of his entrance video. Oh God. You got to put Big Show in a Yugo. Oh. Just all squeezed in.
It's there. Like Hightower in Police Academy. Remember that? I think it was
arms hanging out the side, like holding the steering wheel with 3 fingers.
Yeah. Or he has to like reach around the A pillar of the steering wheel through the windshield to steer the car.
Right.
With it, like 2 fingers.
I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm not even thinking about Cannonball Run. I'm thinking about. I'm also thinking about Death Race 2000 and Mario Kart when I'm thinking about this for some reason. I'm just imagining Big Show being kind of like Bowser, like just hanging out over the side of the car and just doing. Oh my God. Let's see what else you got.
JBL in the limo. I'm trying to think of like significant
JBL on the
cars
limo
with the big horns on the front, the long horns.
Take her in a hearse.
Yes. Or on the bike.
Yeah, depending on the taker, depending on when you do this, either on the bike, or yeah.
Daniel Bryan is in a environmentally friendly car made of hemp, or a Tesla.
Exactly.
Daniel Bryan's in a Tesla.
No, Tesla's too. That's too fancy. He's in like a Volvo that runs only on
biodiesel.
Biodiesel
that he makes at home himself.
Right.
Right. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, he drinks a whole bunch of.
He manufactures it in his garage from his compost pile in the backyard. I know a couple of those guys. We want to be independent of the fuel economy.
What is it that Willie Nelson drives? His tour bus runs on hemp oil or something like that. Like something crazy. I'm just imagining Daniel Bryan like just chugging a whole bunch of temp oil and just peeing it into his gas tank.
Right.
Damn. Let's see. Shayna Baszler. Oh, have you ever seen Shayna Baszler's actual muscle car?
Yeah, she's got a 66 Mustang.
Oh my God, it's
a 71. I think it's a 71 Mach 1, if I'm not mistaken.
It's just it. Oh,
I know my American muscle. America.
If I wasn't a fan of hers before, that did it right there. I was like, damn, that is a good car.
I feel like it's a early 70s Mach 1. I'm looking real quick. No, Shayna, give me 1 second here because now I'm deathly curious. She's got it's a 69 Mustang.
69. That sounds. Yeah, I thought it was a Mustang.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, Mach 1's a Mustang.
Yeah.
But she's also got a Tesla. 2 Teslas, it looks like.
Chuck E. T is driving his mom's minivan. I don't know. Him and Trent and Orange Cassidy in a minivan. It's like with like kids' soccer shoes in the back seat.
I just saw a picture of her with Jessamine Duke and got a little triggered. So I'm going to close that real quick.
Yeah, don't think about it.
Nope.
Rusev in his tank for sure.
Oh,
for sure.
Yes.
Gold dust in the gold Cadillac. I'm reading from the chat. Esme and Lyle tipping out on this. Absolutely. Dude, that would be really fun. Like all these, but again, I want Death Race 2000. I want them like running over people.
Jacob says Hangman Page on a horse. Of course.
Because Hangman rides a horse, of course. That is, of course, unless the horse.
Nobody rides a horse, of course, like famous Hangman Page.
Oh, jeez. We're getting punchy.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's WrestleMania time.
Thank you very much, Kyle. That's a fun one. Closing things out here, Mr. Marshall. Happy 6 months to the mailbag. Thank you, man.
Has it been 6 months?
October,
right.
October 4th. We launched it with AEW, the new era of BWO. After the Tiger King came out on Netflix a few weeks ago, we were introduced to the feud of Carol Baskin. What?
With the what?
Tiger King.
What is it?
Joe Exotic.
What's that?
Anyway. We were introduced to the feud of Carol Baskin and Joe Exotic. So what feuds in
Who?
wrestling do you feel was more personal than scripted? For me, it was the feud with Edge and Matt Hardy when they had legit beef outside the ring. It was one of the last ideas Vince had that really paid off.
I mean, how do you top
them
that
fighting over Lita, basically, right?
For combining reality, like real grit. Pardon the pun with Edge there, but like just the grittiness of that feud. Like, how do you top that? Matt actually genuinely getting fired. Like, there were so many aspects of that feud that just made it so brutal and so personal. I do not know if I can think of one where they let
I'm
guys
not gonna lie,
who hated each other
Miz
that
and
much.
Maurice doing John Cena and Nikki Bella made me laugh hard.
That's of course, but that was not like this. We're talking about like actual beef.
Oh, I don't know that there's ever been anything on that level.
Like they've done stuff that like is a little too close to reality, like making fun of Jake the Snake's alcoholism and making fun of Macho Man's possessiveness over Miss Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And doing that whole angle.
I mean, that got real quick.
They've tried to break people up before, like, we were just watching on the Benoit documentary about what happened with Kevin Sullivan and Woman and him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Kevin Sullivan booked his own divorce. Isn't that the joke?
Yep.
But he never booked the angle afterwards where he gets revenge. And that's what Matt Hardy and Edge was.
They steered into it.
Maybe my mind's just frazzled because I'm thinking of WrestleMania, but I cannot think of anything that was, unless we, I feel like I'm forgetting something. I feel like there's something from ECW or one of the grittier wrestling companies where there was actually gnarlier. Like, I remember when they cut off Messiah's thumbs, but that was a gang hit thing. I mean, they've had that before, and it wasn't really storyline. Tanahashi got stabbed by his girlfriend, but that wasn't storyline. I'm just trying to think when guys actually had real beef and were allowed to work to that extent and ended up being that professional about it. And I can't think of something that's more personal than that.
Yeah, me either. It's hard to top that one, and I think
Marshall just asked in the chat. He said Miz and Bryan felt personal. Yeah, but it was more of just kind of like a professional pride thing. It wasn't like, you stole my girl, you piece of crap. You know what I mean? It was more just about like he hurt Daniel Bryan's feelings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he didn't like actually egregiously wound the guy. I don't know.
Fiend going into Miz and messing with his family. Do we count that? Going in and messing with his baby in the crib?
No, that's storyline. I'm talking about real, Nick.
I know.
I know it's hard for
that
you.
wasn't real?
I know it's hard for you to distinguish what's real and what's not.
Dang it.
But no, that was not real. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm having trouble placing one bigger than Hardy Edge over Lita.
There's and Esme is saying Sean and Hogan again. That was just a professional dispute. Hogan didn't want to put Sean over. Sean wasn't having it, so Sean decided to make a fool of Hogan. But that's still not like on the like someone did something wrong, right? Let's say like Hogan destroyed Sean's car or something, like intentionally.
Yeah.
Destroyed his car. Like really did something bad to him. Like and Sean ended up in jail as a result. I mean, Hogan's gone to jail for the Wild Samoans because they had a gun in the car and they had to keep kayfabe and not speak English.
Right.
But I mean, like going to jail for somebody is one thing, but like having them intentionally send you to jail, and like I'm saying, like someone really messes with you in real life, not in wrestling. And then you have to come back and they go, hey, you know how he totally screwed up your life? Well, we're going to make that storyline and you're going to have to act like you're mad at him. And you're like, I am mad at him. And they go, cool, then just work snug. That's what they did with Edge and Matt Hardy. That's what they did with them. I can't think of any other time that they've done that, where they've got, okay, you guys can be professional, right? I know you hate each other's guts in real life for good reasons, but go out there and be professional. That was a crazy feud.
I can't think of any more.
Yeah.
Mainly because all I can think about right now is what in the hell is going to happen here in the next 2 to 3 hours with WrestleMania. Because I got a lot of work to do to put all you guys' picks together. Thank you so much, everybody, for all of your patron questions every single week.
Guys.
They're amazing. All your contributions to the show. It is the best way to support the show is sign up on Patreon. To quote Dubstep Rob, that if you guys are looking for the best way to do that, it is Patreon or here in the tip jar on the show. It's one of the reasons why we haven't really started doing ads, because you guys have been so awesome at contributing to those efforts. So thank you.
Real quick, they did just to add on that last question. They did just bring up Brett and Sean. That's a pretty close one because there might have been something going on with Sonny, but we've never really heard about that, and I don't think either of them were close enough to Sonny the way that Matt and Edge were to Lita.
Yeah, no.
Sonny was more of kind of like a jumped up ring rat.
Yeah, and Lita was over AF. Compared to what Sonny was. Like, people actually cared about
Sonny
Lita.
was over AF, dude.
Not
Maybe
like
you don't
Lita.
remember, but Sonny
Not
was
like
over
Lita.
AF. Well,
Not-
she just
not
couldn't
like
wrestle
Lita.
she couldn't wrestle like Lita,
Right.
but she was over.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, but yeah,
What's she
that's
doing now?
a
Porn?
close one. That's a close one. She's recovered. She's actually looking a lot better. She's
All right.
apparently recovering. So, and props to her for that.
Anywho.
Yeah, sorry. As you were, sir.
Yeah.
Going home to WrestleMania.
Yeah, we are literally going home to
Here we go.
WrestleMania. Just a reminder, we will be doing a live show tonight. Whenever WrestleMania ends, give us about 15 to 30
that's right.
minutes to get back on and get everything set up and catch our breath after what's bound to be a pretty crazy show tonight. So there will be confirmed a kickoff show starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. We will be doing the watch party in Facebook, pending their live streaming of whatever the hell it actually is, because it's all pre-taped at this point. They did do some stuff today on The Bump, a pretty long show, so we'll see if it's something like that, or if they actually have Sam Roberts, Coach, Renee, etc., Charlie, doing something on the pre-show. But we'll see you guys in the Facebook group, or on the page, I should say, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific, for the kickoff show for tonight's festivities at WrestleMania 36. Make sure you're following us over on Facebook. Just search for Busted Wide Open. Like our page. Send us a join request to get into the group so you can see all of these awesome promos that all of the phenomenal ones are cutting on each other. Make sure you get your pick'ems in. You got about little less than 30 minutes to get them locked in. As long as they're in my inbox or in my Facebook messages, time-stamped before 5 p.m., you're good to go. It's going to take me a little bit to get all of the bets and everything loaded in, because Ian and I have to go get ours ready in the next little bit for going in Raw, and we're going to do some strategeries there to make sure that we come out on top against Lars and the Steven. So, follow us. Come over and join us in the Facebook discussion group. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at BWO Podcast. Make sure you're in the Discord for tonight and tomorrow night for the live chats. You do not want to miss out on those, I promise. And last but certainly not least, the thing that makes this show in particular possible, this patron mailbag, all of our patrons, the phenomenal ones. Thank you guys so much for your contributions every single month. It means the absolute world to us and allows us to even do this show specifically in the first place, to answer all of your questions. If you'd like to get in on that, head over to patreon.com/BWO. You just got to be in the $5 tier to ask those questions, and you get a copy of the show notes And you can compete in our Patrons Pick'ems Challenge 4 times a year at the Big 4 WWE pay-per-views. But above that, bonus episodes, sweet swag, Skype calls with both of us, all kinds of good stuff over at patreon.com/BWO. We'll see you guys tonight for WrestleMania
Very
night
shortly.
1 of the show that's too big for just one night. But my name is Nick Howell. You can find me over on Twitter at DataCenterDude.
And I am Sir Ian Dangerous. You can find me on Twitter at Sir Ian Dangerous.
But my God!
Will somebody stop the damn match?
This show is part of the Orbital Jigsaw Network. For more episodes, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher Radio. For details and show notes from each episode, check us out, orbitaljigsaw.com.